And hey there, guys! Today we're bringing you a slightly different work, different from the ones with music that I also bring to you on the channel. But our story starts with a fight. But this fight had a tragic end for the humans. All the humans died, and the last line of defense was left behind him. Everyone was defeated, and the city behind them was basically about to fall to the ground. But why? It was just a game. So he wonders, why this horror? This entire horror that happened here became his reality, and now no one can stop these monsters, and they were the only warriors. So at this moment he stands up and faces the final boss. For him the world was sometimes boring, so there's only one thing left here, to try a new skill, and even if he dies, he will die happy. Maybe as a great hero, or maybe not. So Mu Shen goes with his maximum power to fight this monster, but Mu Shen fails. The kid is torn to pieces at this moment. He just accepted that humanity lost, but even so, dying there, he didn't accept it. Mu Shen didn't accept his defeat. No one accepted defeat either. But he shouts that he didn't accept it, and he wouldn't accept it anyway. But while shouting about this, everyone in the classroom looks at Mu Shen, completely surprised by what happened. But the teacher who was there at the front calls for him and wonders what he was doing and asks him to shut up since it wasn't a good moment for him to be shouting needlessly. Moreover, he should be shouting about his grades. His grades are very low and no college entrance exam wanted him. He asks him to sit down and shut up, looking at his arms around him. Mu Shen wonders if he didn't die because then an announcement appears that there are 5 minutes left to submit the entrance exam. They needed to submit this exam. If not, they wouldn't pass to anything. At this moment, he sees that the entrance exam was 10 years ago. So Mu Shen realizes that he went back 10 years into the past, a day before or a few months before that virtual test of that ghostly world from happening in his world. So, ignoring what was happening in front of him, he puts his hand in his pocket, pulls out a ring. This was his apocalypse ring. He wonders how it came back with Mu Shen. It was a ring that allowed Mu Shen to enter the apocalyptic game. But can he enter the game before? The question could be answered. But the teacher interrupts him, calling him trash and wondering if this trash really wants to waste his life there. He points in a direction and asks him to leave, telling him to get out. Mu Shen asks him to stop. He wasn't trash, or maybe he could be trash, but now he would basically be handing him a pure reality. If he doesn't want to accept it, basically, live his life like this apocalyptic era that will really happen in his world, and he could be preparing beforehand. But never mind. He ends up ignoring this. Simu just wanted to focus solely on his goals, but the professor asked him to return because he hadn't finished scolding our Simu yet, as he would soon understand the meaning of what he said. However, the professor asked him to be able to speak such nonsense while ignoring Mu Shen. He exits here in front, but the students, his classmates, laugh at Simu for seeing Mu Shen confront the professor. The kid was really cool today, but ignoring all this, years have already passed to another place. The year was 2046 on the Blue Planet's calendar. The virtual game completely completed the world, emerging from nowhere and quickly spreading throughout the world in just a few years. National leaders and ordinary people all became players and were dragged into this world. The game currency could also be exchanged for real money. A single weapon could buy a car or luxury mansions, and it even involved world leaders who also decided to make transactions in the apocalyptic world. Some people also became the richest in this apocalyptic world overnight, but there were also those who lost everything in an abyss. But nothing could stop the wave of the apocalyptic game. And who could imagine that all this would happen after everything started? With all this power, they should unite to defeat the monsters. But humans continued all the wars. However, knowing that the monsters were almost defeating humans by seeing them fighting among themselves, they eventually ended up uniting their strength to fight against the monsters, and thus the war began. But even though the powers of humans were insignificant against the original demonic gods of this game, humanity there never lost hope. They wanted to win. And in the end, there was no chance. Humans couldn't win. The feeling of basically living here was perhaps all a dream, an illusion that he lived before, and Mu Shen was also the only one who died in battle and didn't even have a chance to live again. But at this moment, He still believes that the light of humanity will shine again, so he returns to his home. But at this moment, Mu Shen notices that there was a letter on his table. This letter only mentioned that they would go on an expedition and return later. At this moment, Mu Shen understands that now everything will be different. His father and mother would surely survive until the end of this game, and he would do everything to eliminate any monster that came. So then, it passes to another day at 11 o'clock in the morning. Here he takes his ring, and Mu Shen thinks that this ring belongs to him, and he might use it to perhaps change a bit of humanity's destiny within that world. So he wishes for this thing to work, and as he puts that ring on his finger, a glow begins to emerge from it. At this moment, Mu Shen realizes that yes, it worked. His soul leaves his body. At this moment, Simu will be conquering everything in that other world again. As he was being drawn further and further into that apocalyptic world, he felt happy because this was his second time in this world. But now Mu Shen knows all kinds of monsters and anything that exists there. As he enters this dimension, Mu Shen meets an old man who asks him to reconnect to the server. He also asks the warrior to become strong because he is the future of humanity. After this small motivation, the old man gives Mu Shen some skills he could choose. Choose this one, the sorcerer. Since it is his past life, he chose another class. Mu Shen didn't like it. Since he needed a lot of money, he suffered a lot to become strong. Now he is going to use that skill, but as soon as he chooses that skill, the system appears and comments that it was impossible. He could not change his profession since he already has one. At this moment, Mu Shen is confused, asking how this could be. He never entered this kind of dimension, and moreover, never had a class. But the old man asks our Simu to check his system screen to see what type of class he has. So Simu opens his system and shows there that Simu was level 1, 0 experience. But his profession was that of a mage. Here, Tordo wonders what the hell is happening. And this is no joke. He was already reborn, so everything should have been reborn with 0. But what Mu Shen realizes now is that he was also reborn with his skills. He who lived once as a mage knows the suffering of having this class, and it was necessary to have infinite money to upgrade this class to the maximum level. But the old man ends up fleeing. So seeing that he left, Mu Shen sees that he was reborn, but wanted to basically be reborn with something of well-being, like being born with the sword that kills a dragon. However, Mu Shen stops and thinks that maybe he was also reborn with his equipment, and he even set a high expectation for this. But upon opening the system, he questions what kind of rebirth this is. An heir to the profession who could be reborn with the profession he had in his past life, but Mu Shen also wonders why it was not possible to be reborn with his equipment as well. But of everything that was not there, there was one thing, a skeletal hand. Now wondering what this is, we observe its statistics. The quality of this skeletal hand is unknown, but its description comments that when you look into the abyss looks back at you and sends you to rise. Mu Shen tries to understand the logic of these things he just gained. Even without attributes, Mu Shen would not be able to do anything, and at the moment he would be useless. So he needed something to help him with his rebirth. But as he started about this, he suddenly gets somewhat sucked into another place. Now, Mu Shen already has the class and some good things to start with. Moreover, upon entering this new world, the system congratulates him as Mu Shen is now the first to enter this apocalyptic world. Also, for being the first player, Mu Shen received a specific title and some extra gifts. Thus, his title is given as the fastest man in the world. He is angry about this. He doesn't think anyone would use this name for anything, but he stops and thinks upon seeing that his attributes were basically improved a lot. So he thinks that this unique exclusive was something that Mu Shen deserved. For a long time, Mu Shen thought about fighting boars but never succeeded. But now he will try to do something. He will deal with these boars first. So, Mu Shen takes the thing he had in hand and simply launches a fireball towards those small boars. The boars then receive 12 damage, but the damage is not enough, and the boars are always simply happy about it. He stops and wonders how 12 damage could be. After a long time, Mu Shen realizes that this was due to his level here being level 1. He had forgotten what it was like to be level 1, but he runs. After running for a good while, he stops. However, upon stopping there, Mu Shen hears a girl's voice who was running in his direction. The wild boars, our hero, also runs. She was asking for help, and at the same time, we discover why she is asking for help, as behind her appears a gigantic wild boar. He asks to help kill this dangerous wild boar. Our hero asks her to run in his direction because he would help, but at this moment, a system appears asking to save the girl. In exchange, it would give him some good rewards, and for him, this was not bad. Here was his first mission. She was running, but at the same time, Mu Shen saw that there were some difficulties trying to kill such a large boar. There she runs into his arms. She then runs in his direction into his arms, and he only asks her to run towards the pike's arm that Mu Shen protects. But as he got closer, he then gives her what she wanted, a big slap. Out of nowhere, she flies backward, the wind blows, and the large boar and the small boar stop and try to understand the story. Then she wonders how the warrior managed to do this. She was just collecting some mushrooms until the Boar King attacked her. Now she wondered how this warrior knew her story, and also knew some other things that in the past she took her grandfather's treasure and exchanged it for some sweets, and also put frogs in the water tank for the old man to drink. However, he also knows that she, along with a small demon, also tried to take his power. Now looking closer, he also notices some marks appearing on her. She then wonders how he knew this whole story, but for now, she does not care about it anymore. But now the system shows her attributes, which were quite high, but how dare he also enter her mind? Our protagonist just said that this was just some blood and tears experiences he had in his past life with her. But at this moment, she attacks Mu Shen, already asking him to die already. But quickly he dodges, passing by the boar and by her, and also asks the boar to take care of her now that he was with Mu Shen. Thus, it is done. She attacks the boar. The boar, seeing this, simply gets irritated, blowing smoke from its nose. He uses a skill that makes him stronger, but this did not help much because his mothers were much more powerful. She quickly ended up cutting the boar into pieces. Now that she finished with the boar, she yells that he is next. Mu Shen asks her to let go of his foot, but she would not do that. But she starts losing control of her power. This was a unique opportunity. At this moment, he turns, and with his staff, Mu Shen casts a fireball at her, and that fireball hits her, causing 36 damage, making her more irritated, asking for this human to disappear. And how dare he also deceive her? Due to this, Mu Shen deserves to die. But on his part, he did not want to die like this. So running, he quickly turns and throws another fireball at her, but she does not stop. Thus, it is done for several minutes. He runs, turns, and attacks her, causing 39 damage each minute. Thus running, Mu Shen asks for that she or followed but now stopping. He ends up remembering, according to his memories of his previous life, the magical source of X Huan comes from the pollution of the demonic energy of the forest, and then moving away enough she can no longer move there from that forest that he simply made her run 10 meters away from the forest. Now he asks for our X Huan to run towards him. She then agrees. She runs and asks him to stay still, but he stays well. As soon as she gets close, she stops. She starts to tremble and wonders how it was possible. Again, he discovered a new weak point of hers now. Mu Shen just asks her to stay still, because now he will be using a new ability on her. A giant fireball appears from there and falls in her direction. She is startled by this, and at this moment our ex-Huan ends up being defeated by him there quickly, as soon as he defeats her quickly. Mu Shen ends up gaining some points, so he can be adding new attributes. His boy is very happy to see that he also managed to get some possibilities of getting stronger, gaining some percentages, and the fate of Shan ended up being determined by trying to pursue him. The one given there after defeating her was quite amazing, But Mu Shen wanted to see what XMU would be giving as a reward, also by taking hidden things from her. But at this moment, that unknown arm appears a kind of up there. He turns around, so Mu Shen grabs that bone hand and realizes that this hand of the dead god leveled up at the same time when he leveled up too. This was the hand of death, but the hand of death was a new thing, and it was for him. Mu Shen was surprised, because he had never even heard of it in his previous life. He thought it was really cool. This, yes, it was, but to activate it was necessary to do some gadgets, but Mu Shen gives up now. He needs to focus now on other things. He needed to collect some materials, so for that, he would need to go to the beginner's village soon. So she is happy to see that Mu Shen saved her life in exchange, so she would be giving him a gift. This gift was a very powerful staff. Logically, this would be perhaps the gift he felt he deserved. What he now holds in hand was a celestial staff that was actually a purple item, but later a little. He would be identifying this in the beginner's village. Only that the girl asks Mu Shen to carry her to the village as a bodyguard, and soon then the system appears, saying that Mu Shen needed to complete a quest to take Xuan back to the village, where King Guan King Hu would be giving him some good rewards. He doesn't really care about these rewards, because the real good reward there was her costing a little stronger on his back, so he continues forward until the village. Arriving already in the village, we see several people talking with him there. However, when approaching a cabin, she ends up reuniting with her grandfather, calling for her grandfather. We see there the old man's happiness stamped on his face. He was one of the village chiefs. He is so happy to see that his granddaughter was alive. She is also happy to see that he was waiting for her. While there, this whole drama happened. We observe in the background, our protagonist Mu Shen receives this reward from the system, so he arrives there to thank this warrior for bringing her safe and sound to his village. But the warrior asks for the old man not to be so happy. But the old man asks for a new thing, so that he could do there in the blood of our ex-Juan. There was still a little poison. So Mu Shen just asks for, our hero hunted some zombies, because thanks to the zombie blood, he will be able to completely remove a certain poison still in her body, and so he accepts the mission. Accepting the mission, the system appears celebrating his happiness. He leaves. The old man asks that the warrior does not suffer so much and wished good luck to Mu Shen. Mu Shen says goodbye to the old man, thus advancing. But now that he will be fighting monsters, and he is a mage, Mu Shen will need to be well prepared at this moment. So Mu Shen will have to look for a pharmacist to get those extra items and those additional things to help him finish off the monsters. Thus, he goes to a certain pharmacy that was nearby. Entering, he observes the beauty and calls for Mu Shen. Then entering, he asks to be given about 28 small blue potions. Each potion costs only 50 gold. So, since he will need 28, it will cost 1,500 gold in total. However, she approaches our hero and wonders if he really only wants those blue potions. If Mu Shen can make the sister here a little happy, she will probably give a good discount to our hero, but he disagrees and was not interested. The only thing Mu Shen wanted was his potions, and did not know why he was leaving. After a good while, he leaves. She asks him to maybe come back later for some things she still needed to do with Mu Shen. Thus, we observe him leaving, but she still asks him to come back. However, another warrior appears wondering what they were talking about inside. It is likely that the two were a couple at this moment. Mu Shen approaches the warrior to explain the whole story to him so that things do not get worse. Thus, he ends up delivering that and leaving. In another place, we can observe him picking up some things he bought at the pharmacy, but identifying items' faces in this game. It was more exciting than playing in real life. But soon, there will be specialized merchants selling unidentified items, and the rich started these battles to see who reaches the top. But at this moment, he needed to make a stolen staff, and so he hoped with all his might to evolve this staff into something quite powerful. After a minute of tension, he gets what Mu Shen wanted. His staff ends up reaching a rather rare class. So now that Mu Shen has the best staff, it was the best moment to start hunting the zombies to wipe them out. And so the scene cuts to the zombie area. We observe fire falling from the sky. The zombies on the ground are all caught by it. Soon he used a 10% fire rate, that allows the zombies to suffer extra damage, which allows him to finish off the zombies quickly. Suffer, but the hand of that skeleton that is there, he may also be evolving, that in the future Mu Shen may sell or may just use it. But he is also happy about a new thing that will happen. These are the players that sooner or later will be entering this world, and he will be able to earn quite a lot of money by selling to these new players. So, right, this business that he said would take a long time didn't take that long, because by noon we observed several people taking the ring. The same ring that Mu Shen has there that our protagonist P before they put it all on their finger, and everyone is directed inside this realistic game here, entering the general world, already stays there, happy seeing that this game was too realistic. Now they will be doing almost everything to get the best equipment in here. But at this moment, we observe some crazies touching that pharmaceutical. However one touched it, right? Has to see that misfortune of dying by the blacksmith and wonder why the NPCs here are so angry like this. So, right? At this moment, while they were talking about this, we observe him in the background. Our hero setting up his little stand now was the moment for him to start what Mu Shen was going to start selling items to. The monsters respawn every half hour. So all that was left was to wait here that players will appear after. Also, he having managed to kill quite a few monsters, he got quite a few items and a lot of medicine vials and a lot of something and a lot of red and blue potions. He could now be selling this for a very high price. But at this moment, he was also level 4, and if by chance he leaves this active, everyone will be looking at him and getting stuck about this. And what Mu Shen wants at the moment is not to draw so much attention for this. He wants to sell things, not draw attention from other crazies who want to be fighting against him there out of nowhere. And so he finds a flag. There, minutes later, Mu Shen shouts that he was selling high-quality items. Everyone who was then finds him an idiot for basically selling items of a game that has barely been launched, and who would be the crazy one wanting to buy right away, so the general already recognizes him as a fool. Everyone who was there already wanted to ignore this crazy guy who was trying to sell these things. Mu Shen then feels content inside himself for seeing that his attributes were too strong for these mere newbies here to be seeing there, so he can do whatever he wants at the moment here. But while no one was looking to buy something, we observe a girl approaching his counter, but as she approaches, she sees that the items were great, but asks why the prices were so high. The general gossips who were in the background were already fawning over her, seeing that she was the most beautiful. There, this was Ting Shu now that he looked a little closer at her. Mu Shen tries to wonder what she was really doing here right at his counter. This one that just appeared in the future. She will be one of the 10 mages of the Summer Kingdom and one of the highest command in a safe zone of high level in the apocalyptic world. She will be basically supported by a mysterious organization that in the future supported her to become stronger. However, she wants to show us something that in the past did not exist. Like in the past, you could not modify your character, which means that you entered here into this world with your real-life character. Well, he was lucky to find here firsthand the most beautiful girl that Mu Shen knows. However, she saw this sign a little arrogantly and thought. She was interested and wanted to see what he would sell so well. She approached our protagonist's stall to buy some things, but was surprised to see that the game had barely started, and he already had equipment that could only be found in the zombie area. Mu Shen wondered if she really wanted to buy, asking Musen if she would take some. She ended up wanting a few items, but since she was quite attractive and was one of the first to want to buy from them, he might be selling half of the items dropped on the ground for more than 55,000 gold. However, because she was beautiful, he would give her a discount. Nevertheless, she was sad to see that he was charging too much. If she thought it was expensive, there was another way to get a discount. She then wondered what she needed to do to get that discount. Soon, he shouted that if she just touched his thigh, he would give her a 20% discount on anything she wanted to buy. She stepped back, calling him shameless. If she didn't want to comply with what our protagonist proposed, she could find zombies herself and hunt the same items there. This guy was indeed trying to scam, but her guild didn't have that much money. She was interrupted abruptly when a guy said he would pay 100,000 gold coins and take everything. In the background, we observed a mysterious shadow and were introduced to a group of extras. As soon as Mu Shen glanced at this figure, he had some memories. This person was one of the top 10 ranked guys in Madam's guild. Even though it was his previous life, these memories were fresh in his mind. This was a guy who would steal from bosses or any type of monster. They were dying to be on top, but now in his life here, he didn't want to argue with someone like that. However, she interrupted him, asking why he was there. She had made a deal with him, but Mu Shen easily broke that deal. He asked her not to argue with him there, as she would surely lose. However, she raised the stakes, offering 150,000 gold coins for that TR of our hero. But Madame Work Hero there raised the price to 200,000 gold. Our hero realized that the Yuan and Madame's forces were basically spending all their money to buy these best equipment here. Although it was a bit expensive, it was still worth it, as getting stronger faster with these items would help a lot. As he was thinking about the next plan, he noticed that she couldn't miss her opportunity. Turning embarrassed, she agreed to some things with him. Noticing this, he asked this new opponent of his to leave because he had something important to address. Once he told him to get out of here, Mu Shen turned to Mu Shen and said that he should recognize him. Ignoring that, his companions interrupted what he was doing, but he asked his boss to calm down. It wasn't good to fight in the village, but outside, they might play a bit with ambushes. Showing some hatred, the hatred was likely to be aimed at taking our hero down. Protagonist, but none of this was so worrying, because here the scene is cut to another place. Here it is cut to behind a church. At this moment, we see there the face of happiness of our hero. He ends up receiving some transitions of them. At this moment, he wanted to also get other things very, very precious from her, but she rudely asks him to leave. Otherwise, she would do something to him if he did something to her, but there was no need to worry. Definitely, it would be a next time, and next time, he will be making her touch his content from his last heart, even more likely that she is still very inexperienced. And although Moken is a rather arrogant and a little crazy guy, he was still a bit of a fine guy. Even if he never even loses 20% discount, does not mean that 122,000 gold will be charged from her, but to have this discount will have to touch her legs. Well, she is a little hesitant about this, but Ruff throws against the wall. He wonders if she really wants to fulfill the promise to exchange the legs. Well, she does not. She does not know, but our protagonist asks if she was prepared then to return to her word that she says pressing her. We see her still staying hesitant. He understands a little of the story, smiling a little Mew. Shen moves away. He will have a loss. Even a quite large or even considered well will be making the transition, so she does not understand how this really worked. Basically, he reveals that he has a little grudge against Madam HK, that guy from Ines, and never planned to sell items to that guy. Well, it was a little remarkable. But to obtain a large amount of supply from the beginning, we see her wondering who would be this such moose in there, besides that he offended the Madame group. Well, for now, they are not so dangerous, but in the future, maybe it will be. But still, she needed to stay strong to be able to help him since Mu Shen just helped her there. But here the scene is cut to another place in the village. There we see the system congratulating already Moosin here for having completed his mission. The old man thanks too, since due to our protagonist's help, a Chao Huan, to get his blood completely clean. Besides that, the beasts attacked a lot by these guys there, and due to that, their village had some quite high casualties, but however, he only asks him for some bandages so that he can be using on him there. Even so, he also had some accumulated points, which means he can be putting all these accumulated points in magic. So as soon as he does this, the system shines and he ends up leveling up. Then the system screen appears showing the new Shimu stats. However, Shimu is very happy to see that Mu Shen managed to be much ahead of the noobs. Well, this was more than expected from our Shimu, but now he needed basically to focus on other missions as quickly as possible moving forward. He also comments that it seems that he even used some cheaters to have these advances faster, and kind of used. Yes. So moving forward, he stops, shocked. He thinks that he forgot. Well, he forgot something important. But this important thing he leaves for later after stopping and thinking he remembers that the old man had said something to him that this old man could cure anything. However, then he ends up inventing that he had a terminal illness and he needed only the help of the old man. Only old man in the whole universe could cure him with the performance that deserves a 10 out of 10. We observe the old man simply watching him there, but the old man does not stay still. So the old man starts to accept some magic words, saying that he leaving him, he will not let you. Our warrior would die so easily from mere wounds. So he uses a cure and some buffs on our hero. The system appears saying that the old man gave Mu Shen some buffs and extra fortunes. Now Mu Shen, having received this, is happy to see that this was the true reward for adding the task. Chow, Huan demonized. This permanent buff from the village chief is quite a high springboard so that he could already be advancing a lot. But the background, figures who observe this performance of our hero end up replicating the same idea. They like the idea, and it might be a good idea to also give buffs to Mu Shen. The old man is confused, but now our hero's next goal is to follow a dungeon. As it is said, he goes to a completely unknown dungeon. We observe him passing through forests, but this was not just any forest, as this forest where he is a forest that every second drains 5 of his health. He saw that he could not use potions, could not do anything to recover his health there. Normal players would not last even 30 seconds there. However, even if you have money in life, you can buy potions. Well, these potions you could use to heal, but you would have to use them all the time. But with that cure that our hero got from the village chief, it will allow him to fully recover his health. But while he was happy about this, he sees in another direction he finds some things happening. We observe from another place this guy running, asking her to run, but these ghostly things were reaching her. However, talking about this, the cloth ends up wrapping around her, immobilizing her. Her companion, instead of helping, only sees her flying a little backward toward the bot. But at that moment, he finds our hero, he jumps in his direction and calls for them. It was too late because as he was getting closer, another cloth, a little different from the other, pierced his chest. What did this? Was one of those ghosts. He throws that human up while he was stuck in a pile. The system shows that he was level 5, his HP was 200. The Monster level 5 was very high level, and this was considered a newbie killer. It was no wonder these noobs were being eliminated, but the speed of demonized mummies was not very fast, and he could use his staff to deal with them. So he sees the mummy approaching him with the staff in hand. He casts fire at it. The mummy cannot dodge and is hit full on, while its fellow mummies stand with their mouths open at the damage done. But they wouldn't stop. They chase after our hero. But this was perfect. His plan was going as he wanted. He needed to eliminate these creatures so that all resources would be delivered to him. He hoped they would reach him, but he saw that these slow mummies would not reach him. But at that moment he remembers that in the forest there is basically a swamp, and he then thinks of luring all these mummies there. Jumping to the other side, he sees that they bit the bait, but now he wonders why they haven't come. Perhaps they are scared, but that is not a reason to stay behind. However, what he did greatly irritated the mummies. The mummies then get angry and prepare to attack him. They all attack our hero, but quickly he dodges every blow from those mummies there, but the mummies did not stop. Just with that, they attacked from any side. The mummies gave a boring job to Elda, but it was easy to defeat. However, he needed a certain minute close by to attack, so the mummies all at once attack our hero, but he grabs all the cloths that were grabbing onto him. He uses a tree that is helping him to defeat these mummies, but still, everything he did here was not enough. He uses those trees around him again, and thus the mummies become more and more entangled with each other, and after a long time, he manages to immobilize them all. He asks himself why they wouldn't move anymore, so the mummies are trapped there in the ground. Now he is casting a great fireball spell on them to burn those creatures. He also realizes that these mummies only chase novices, so since he was stronger, there was no reason to stay here tormenting the lives of these things. What he should do was just finish off these mummies as quickly as possible. However, he also ends up receiving a certain mission. His mission was basic. It was just to kill 100 men. Well, crazy men. So by achieving this, he will be gaining new good skills, and with that, he will also be reaching level 5 and will have quite high advantages, and will also receive plenty of rewards for killing those 100 players who are in this game. But first, he wants to finish off these mummies, so he takes his staff and sets fire to the mummies. The mummies are completely defeated while the system congratulates our hero for having defeated plenty of mummies, and at the same time, he receives plenty of rewards. One of these rewards was a book that was quite good, but although he couldn't use the skill from this book, which was attack bow, he could take it and sell it for some 1,000 golds. While he was holding the book, he observes in the background the mummies running, and he was laughing while mocking them. While he was here in good spirits, the mummies were suffering a bombardment of fire on top of them as he was finishing off the mummies. In the background, we observe that guy who was pouncing on anyone crazy enough to cross his path. He and the rest of his group were already prepared to catch the mummies that were being defeated. He asks his brothers to advance towards the mummies and finish them off as quickly as possible. Shouting the war cry, they advance into the forest. As he runs through this forest, other players think this guy is too crazy for charging ahead without mercy, but another comments that there was some white glow around them, and that only happens when he buys a potion, but these potions are very expensive. However, another comments that these guys are very strong because they have a guild, but to have a guild, you need to be at level 10. He was advancing and calling everyone watching them poor, and he ordered the poor to just watch the destruction he was going to cause. Advancing like this, they encounter a mummy pointing in their direction. He asks his comrades to finish off that mummy as quickly as possible, and so it is done. But it wasn't them who finished off the mummy. It was a fireball causing 213 damage, instantly killing that mummy. But now that the fire appeared, this one wonders who threw a fireball here, meaning that there is a mage here. However, mages are some girls who are in the novice lobby over there, at level 3. They were still learning how to use this thing, and maybe he thinks it was someone else. He was right, because one of his companions points in another direction and asks them to be careful because there is a fire spell. The fire spell simply starts falling out of nowhere. On top of them, realizing that it could be bad to stay there, everyone decides to run. They run as fast as possible to save themselves, but some don't make it. They are caught by this fire falling from the sky. Even being caught by this fire, they ask for help, but no one helps anyone. Everyone only thinks about escaping while they are fleeing, and the fire is falling behind them. We observe in front, our hero sitting. He is sad about something. He just wanted to farm some mobs, but for some reason, some people keep coming to where he was. They are some groups of very weak people, and he wonders what these strangers were doing here. Speaking of which, the new level 5 skill, Frost Dan, is a great ability, one he can use to freeze anything he wants. The next wave of mummies won't appear for a while, so he might try to rest and organize his inventory for the next wave. Looking at his inventory, he sees some books and other good things that could bring him a fortune, but it's still a shame he hasn't even managed to kill those 100 people yet. Some are still left, but if by chance he managed to catch some guys known as the gods, then he would be able to complete this mission quickly. By the way, he also got another book. This book would be great for someone who was a mage, and guess what? Our protagonist was a mage. Maybe this skill here is good since this book is pretty good for him. This book will allow him to become a little faster and stronger. It will also allow him to fight against monsters or anything he encounters. But now he'll have to log out to eat and do other things as well. But meanwhile, the scene is cut to another place, Here we observe her and her group fighting against some mummies. Well, now that she has completed her missions, she will be disconnecting, leaving the party here with them. Simu wanted to disconnect while the others disagreed about it. They all go after her, asking her to stay since the two here, or the whole group, could still be defeating several monsters or other things that might appear. Well, she was already fed up with these guys here. She realizes that these guys were almost like everyone else, except for him, an unknown guy. However, they will be participating in a new raid, and at this moment, they are in need of a vice leader, and she could be joining as the vice leader of their group. And if she joined their team, it's very likely that her guild's popularity would increase quickly. But all she asks is for this stranger to shut up, then quickly turns in his direction and shoots a laser beam that flies towards a mummy that was behind. But even so, it grazes a bystander. The guy was surprised to see that there was still a living mummy, but she wonders what they would want to do with the guild, since they barely know how to deal with the small mummies here. And then, after some good research, she realizes that these things here wouldn't be worth it. So she will be discarding these strangers. Then, she turns to find a better place where she can farm, because staying here would probably make her waste too much time. But the other one just asks to let her go since they could catch her at any time and take her to the boss. By doing so, they would earn a good reward. But he stops and thinks it wouldn't be worth it, since even having her by his side would be a good idea. She memorized the loot from this mummy, so it means she has very fast reflexes and would probably not be caught off guard. They will have to set a good trap for her. But our story continues right after he is defeated. The guys comment that if such a man could create monsters, but everything he does is killing people as well, because even a single scream here costs 100. What exactly was this guy up to, since this madman there was killing everyone and also killing the mummies? But what Musen was really doing here was burning money. Now, Mu Shen, quite irritated, saw that he had to get revenge because the humiliation he went through was great. Moreover, he should have been killing our hero at any cost. It didn't matter to him. If he didn't kill him, he would be called the Mad God of War. Others in the background appear, saying that they were also killed by this Musen and wanted an explanation from them. Furthermore, he was a guy who created monsters everywhere. Why was he killing normal people at will in the moment? Roto appears and comments with the lady that if he had the courage, he could be entering the forest, and there he would find the M. But it's no use standing here talking about anything. He should act. So this guy ends up feeling a bit down, quite sad, knowing that Xingwei was at a much higher level than they were. Moreover, we observe that she was strongly defending this Mu Shen. What was he to her? He ends up realizing that he wasted a lot of time here and should leave, but she says, what does Mu Shen's state have to do with anything? Furthermore, she wouldn't allow him to advance because she asked for honor there, to let her fight him first. At that moment, we discovered that her guild was starting to grow strong, so she should start protecting our hero since Musen allowed them to get a bit stronger. But looking in the background, we discovered that this guy there wasn't so keen on fighting after all, since the guy was just flailing around out of pure stupidity. And so, at this moment, while he was flailing around, we observed our Min who appeared, saying that he was his, and moreover, no one there could be interrupting. But this guy ends up pointing at him and telling him to repent for what he said and also for what he did to them. So, at this moment, he challenges our Makem to a fight. He just cracks his knuckles, showing off his new abilities and his level, which is level 7, shocked, and wondering how he managed to become a level 7 mage. From another place, another one points at him, saying that he also had a buff that could only be obtained in the initial village. Furthermore, this guy Moin here was in the same dimension as them. How could he fight against that? Well, he was strong, but compared to him, he was nothing. At this moment, he calls for his grandpa, wanting the blessings of the grandchildren, but we discover that the guys weren't ready to fight. Then, we discovered that the guys weren't so scared after all, since they say they would reconsider the apology of our protagonist, but Moin would have to die at their hands. But if he doesn't die at their hands, they will be chasing him for life, and then they will kill him. Also ends up saying, right, that they are strong too, and there's no way they could lose to just one guy. Right? Killing people. Not our May wouldn't do something like that. He was just a guy doing his missions, killing some mummies, but he also received a mission to kill alchemists, and that wasn't his fault deep down. Someone says, Zeka, what a disgusting alchemist. That's exactly what they wanted, since if this guy died at Mochin's hands, he would be doing a public service. With a red face, He said it wasn't his fault. That was some nonsense Mu Shen was talking about now, that his reputation with the girls was ruined. Mu Shen will now be paying dearly. Now he asks him to stop talking and come at him. Holding his axe in hand, he prepares. And it also seems that this enemy group of his joined together there to defeat our Mu Shen. Then she asks there for the Ting group to join her team, at least to help him kill this group faster, but he said he didn't need it for now. He realizes that this Renair wasn't so ugly when it seems then at this moment he asks her to step back with her group because the fight here will be a bit uglier. As soon as he says this, he activates the PvP mode. He thinks that in a group he can defeat him. He is wrong, since to at least defeat our hero, everyone needed to be at a balanced level, since that's what he wanted. She would do that. Moreover, she realizes that this Mim might have been arrogant or was really strong, but this she would find out now. These noobs were just here to get in the way. So at this moment, he will be using some of his mana, the weakest mana he has, to defeat these things. As soon as he triggers his fire ability, it goes in his direction, but he asks his tank group to protect him, so it is done. Then he orders his mages and archers to attack Moen as quickly as possible. That was also done. Arrows and fireballs go in Muzen's direction, but Muzen quickly dodges each arrow and each attack from that group there. Then we find out that they were a group that only had idiots, seeing that he ended up sending his strongest companions to use their strongest magic to finish the fight. But that was his mistake. We find out that he hid behind the tree while hiding. He realized that to defeat those guys back there, it was necessary to use an ice ability, since that would already be enough to kill each one of them. And at this moment, he grabs his staff and then already uses his ice magic. That ice magic that was used flew towards the group of extras, which then ends up hitting the weakest ones. The strongest ones manage to escape, but even escaping, they end up being caught. However, to defend against that ice, the leader asks for a shield to be used, but it didn't help. Everyone was being caught by that ice from our Musen. Meanwhile, they ask for the shield to be used again, but he says he wouldn't use it. Now we also find out that the leader was too stupid, wasted that shield block before. Now he will be waiting a few seconds to hit them with the fireball. After shooting at one, he leaves and asks them to look in his direction because he had a surprise. The surprise was so big that we find out that the leader wasn't so surprised, just a little bit. Above him, we discovered a gigantic fireball. And ready. In the end, all the warriors and mages were caught by this fire ability of his. But while they were burning, they asked their boss for help, but the boss was there in the back just using his healing potion. So now after healing, he runs. But our Mu Shen does not allow him to run, right? He says to him, "Why are you running?" Because he was so arrogant before. But now he was running. He tells him not to come closer. Now he realizes that his lantern has no magic here. He is surprised that this T Maoen managed to defeat an elite group like his. But they were defeated without our hero, our Musen, using his high-level magic. So to finish him off, he will now fight a little more seriously. Now, in this fight, he launches several flashes of attacks in his direction. Those are stained now that he used his demonic warrior ability. He realizes that now he can no longer use any other ability, and as far as he knows, in 40 seconds, he will have the advantage in everything. At this moment, he advances, but all his blows are dodged by our Musen. He only needs to keep a distance from this crazy guy Heru behind this crazy warrior, he calls him, says he was very slow, seemed like his grandfather, but he turns and attacks him. But dodging, we see the leader totally irritated with this Mochin. He may be a mage, but even being a mage, he was too arrogant and hard to defeat. When he was going to use his most powerful sobriety, he asks to wait now that he asked to stop. He starts getting arrogant, saying that he now regretted it because now he has the best ability in hand, but that was not it. As he points towards his head and says that his HP was already at a minimum, then he just throws a small fireball at him. This small fireball was enough to take 66 points, taking the rest of his life. And even though he killed him, he will return and asks him to prepare because his group will not forgive him. But the groups of figures behind see that it was enough to kill an elite group entirely easily. Now that the girls saw Mu Shen a little closer, they find him somewhat handsome, but that one over there, the most beautiful, realizes that this Mochin is really the strongest she has seen so far. Besides everything he did, he also completed the mission. This was the mission to kill without players. And so the news spread to the world of players that a certain Mu Shen killed without players, or not believing it since he was just a little short of completing this quest to kill without players. But how did he manage to do this before him? But now that he is meeting Moen, he wanted to recognize him. But in another place in the Imperial City, we see a guy who was sad to see that he was only 20 kyogs short of completing this mission. But being sad, he asks his subscribers to send him a gift so that at least he would be happy. But this such Murchinho, there was something different, like he was a very experienced player. We also discovered that this guy was a very powerful guy, but no longer compared to our hero now. In another Azur Wong server, we observed that our beautiful one from Anes was here almost completing the mission. Well, she was only 10 short of completing it. She was also sad to see that this Mu Shen managed to be very fast, but maybe he was that person she remembers. But meanwhile, he sneezed to see that someone was talking about him behind his back, but ignoring that, he approaches our sister with tear as he had. Second, subjects to comment on about her alone in the back of the forest's It's quite likely that he will put on the table a rather suspicious idea for her to accept, and she would refuse with great pleasure. The boss here got angry with his subordinate already, right? Saying there that they let him kill them and still humiliate them, but he asks the god of war to relax because they would level up again. By leveling up again, they would surely become stronger and might be able to take revenge on that Moen who humiliated him. But at that moment, someone kept sending him private messages all the time. Irritated, he opens the system screen where Moen sent some messages. After he took all the action to motivate the group to attack those trees that were invading their territory again, Musin advances, and with just a few movements of his staff in hand, he destroys several trees that were there. But the hunters behind saw that he was very strong. Musin was on a completely different level than they were since they couldn't even properly scratch those trees, whereas Musin was already peeling bark and anything that came from those trees. Musin was having a field day. But at that moment, he needed the help of the hunters as well. To motivate them, he calls them, saying that now it was their turn because, with the help of those hunters, he could be killing those trees much faster. With this motivation, the mages, archers, and warriors gain extra motivation. Out of nowhere in this fight, they could be dying, but they would come back to life, so they didn't need to worry about that because Musin gave them a greater expectation of life than they had before, for those trees in front of them were now nothing more, while the players were motivated by Musin to defeat these trees. In other servers, we see other people playing the game saying that M was a more than experienced player. He managed to get an entire server together in one place just to kill trees. And after a while, those mages, our hero's partners, appear in the background. They wonder where the monsters are. It was supposed to be full of monsters here. But that one, before our hero, who was totally eager to grab her, said that they didn't need to worry so much because if it was that guy, she thinks everything's already over here. So, as soon as she says that, a side character, wild and crazy, passes by with an axe, saying that now he needed to kill trees. And as she said, it was indeed Ma who motivated those guys to clear those trees from this server. Meanwhile, the other one was worried about what they should be doing since everyone had already killed several trees and there was nothing left, and they needed to farm XP. So, for that, the leader says not to worry so much because they were something quite powerful there, and now would be showing that to mere side characters. What is farming XP here? Then the scene is cut to our Mei again, giving a war cry, asking for the mages to strengthen the other people. The request was made because our mage and warrior end up getting buffed, which allows them to have stronger defense, while others get stronger attacks, saying afterward not to worry so much, because now, with this power, they could be finishing off those trees as fast as possible. At this moment, even our Tinger appears, asking him to join her team, saying that he would be quite acceptable and would be received with open arms on her team. And at the moment she says that, the scene shows our hero asking for mages, archers, and anything with long range to attack. So it's done. The players gather in one spot, and there they cast magic, arrows, and fragments, and the assassins and warriors advance in the direction of the trees that were still left on the ground. They quickly destroy each of the monsters that were there, while they advanced and destroyed each of the trees that survived there. At this moment, the scene is already cut to a monitor where that battle was being presented to several people, to crowds. That one asks them to look, because looking at the screen, people notice that there are 800 people in the middle of the battlefield fighting against the monsters. Others were asking who this Muzan was to be able to gather so many people like this in a single fight, while Muzan was doing an excellent job. Elsewhere, the leader of Mandame Black was there, frustrated to see that he had lost almost everything in the game, but they needed to get back to the game soon. But at that moment, he discovered something, that killing a player gives you 100 experience points, but it also gives other extras, like 20 points. So he needed to find a unique opportunity to kill some players, and those players he talked about were our hero or other guys out there. Then, the scene cuts to another place where a general comments about the tree's revenge. That was nothing. He was called there for no reason. He thought it was something interesting. So he asks his companion Johnson to analyze the situation of the village there. By analyzing it, they could send an army of players to that village, where they could take advantage of the opportunity to kill the trees and also the players. But his companion asks him to relax because they wouldn't stand a chance against the trees or the players. They were all level 3, but the general didn't like his words. He wonders if he dares to say that again to his face, since they were one of the strongest guys, like he had one of the strongest nations in the world. Then he asks them to send the players right away, as players in his world were only there to serve him, playing all day to get XP and make his empire grow more and more. His goal now was to defeat that tree's revenge and take all the XP from them for himself. And now he asks them to do that immediately. Agreeing, the scene cuts to Muzan. His whole group celebrates for seeing that they managed to defeat those trees that were taking revenge on our hero. But their celebrations didn't last long, as they heard noise. Something was approaching near their territory. This thing was rooting more and more through this gigantic forest. At this moment, the boss appears, the strongest boss, very angry and irritated with the humans, also known in this world as the demonized tree god. At this moment, after he appears, it's shown that he was quite strong. However, the boss then prepares and launches an attack towards those players, hitting some players directly. The players that were hit call for help at this moment. Our girl there was already being almost attacked. She tries to defend herself, but it was too late. There was nothing she could do in front of this monster. She could be easily defeated. But that's what we imagined, as May appears and saves her day. After saving her day, he takes her to another place. She thanks Muzan for saving her life. In his thoughts, he wonders if that attack from the tree god was directed at him, but he also wonders if his identity as someone reborn was, I don't know, so alluring, but he will have to figure that out later maybe. Then he, with his brother Staff, starts counterattacking the boss, taking 13 or 10 or 15 from this monster. But that wasn't enough, as the monster had 30,000 health points. How were they going to kill a monster like this? They were weak compared to this monster. But the monster gets more and more irritated. At this moment, because he was irritated, he ends up summoning those disgusting trees again that appeared from the ground. With no way out, with no way to deal with these monsters, everyone turns towards May and wonders what they are going to do now since another squad of trees appeared there to attack the village again. Not knowing where to run or what to do, May asks them to relax, because they could do the same as he did before. They take care of the small trees while our Muzan will take down that big guy who just appeared in front of them. And the request was made. She then guides them. Mages and the knights who were there then, after being prepared, began to get ready. The knights go ahead while the mages from behind start throwing fire, as Mem had asked them to do something for Cedo. With that, his request would now be fulfilled. Furthermore, this would be a favor, as they would be clearing the way for Mem to finish off boys. That was really Juan, the one who can handle an entire zone here. He might be wondering if she would show her full power here at the very beginning, but he wouldn't be able to fully see the total sobriety here as the big tree there begins to attack Moen. It launches some tree trunks in her direction, and as always, for some reason, this boys was focusing on our Musen for some reason. But he didn't need to worry. This boys was strong, had infinite life, but he knew his weak point. His weak point was humans and also the friends we made along the way. This is the one who guided several trees to take revenge on the trees. But he also has something that everyone has, something humans also have, a heart. His weak point is the heart, so Moshe throws fire at his heart, dealing 555 damage right away. But even causing 555 damage, it wasn't enough to take away even half of Boy's life. The creature was powerful. But if you were hit by this monster's attack and the damage hit your soul, you couldn't recover the damage it caused to you. So at this moment, he didn't worry too much about it, because if he wasn't hit by that, he could quickly kill that monstrous tree. But at this moment, he saw that Boys was heading in the direction of our Onion. However, he realized he couldn't let that happen at this moment, so he runs in another direction, drawing the monster's attention. Meanwhile, she asks the mages to go to the resurrection base and cast those basic buffs on them. Meanwhile, she was also worried about Moken. But Moken, in another place, was being counterattacked by that tree. But those tree branches couldn't even touch our Musen, as he managed to dodge any blow from that thing. But there's one thing here that gives him an advantage. Those branches that were being thrown in his direction, since they had just been born, were extremely weak. With a little fire, he could burn those branches entirely there. At this moment, he saw that the tree was caught by his ability. But for that, he needed to use another ability. This was the fire rain. This fire rain ended up falling on Boys, automatically taking several 500s of damage from Boys here. But Mem knew that Boys could be running, so he uses the ice ability on his feet, freezing Boys there. Our Makan then once again asks for Boys not to move. Now he would be finishing Boys off as quickly as possible. She then quickly looks at her system screen and sees that Moken had already taken half of Boy's life. The people below, seeing this, gain more and more motivation to finish off Boys as quickly as possible. By finishing off Boys, they would surely be gaining a lot of XP and many resources. As they stayed motivated here, the scene cuts to our hero. Our hero was already almost defeating Boys. Boys was completely frozen, so to finish him off once and for all, he would be using a fireball. This was his final fireball. Then, with that fireball formed, he throws that fireball at this monster. The monster was defeated while disappointed, seeing that he ended up losing to the humans, also realizing that it was a mistake to mess with our Musen. He disappears soon after, and the trees that were fighting in the village also disappear. The people celebrate this, and as soon as they kill that Boys, a system appears congratulating our hero for having killed Boys, and also the entire village for having managed to kill the rest of the trees. They would also be receiving some rewards, making everyone who was there like Musen even more. And now they would be receiving one of the best chests they could get in the world. Some of them as memorable for seeing that each player would also be receiving 10,000 coins to be able to hunt whatever they wanted. The scene here then also already cut for Musen. Chen saw there that by having managed to kill that tree god, he now realizes that he can also use that in that bone hand from before. In doing so, he ends up leveling up a few levels, but now it was the turn of the god of death, that thing in front of him. He then grabs that thing and places it in his hand. As soon as he places that over his hand, he ends up activating that thing. But at that moment, he realizes that something also happened to him. He can no longer move. At this moment, other people also cannot move. Some felt a strong wave of something that was about to happen in their village. So knowing that something was approaching their village, she asks the mages to already cast buffs on themselves, as they would need to be concerned about the new thing that would happen to them. But this is where it happens, right? The mages, the people who were assigned the buffs, are also immobile. They can't move either. Some of them wonder if this was not a bug in the game. However, those who were under the Cabot effect see their life going down to 0, but their life dropped to 0. Oh, because they didn't die here. They should have already respawned in the lobby, but so far, nothing. That's when she realizes that they won't be able to die, even if their life is reaching 0. They will only see a dark field of vision. So they must wait for Moen, as Moen hasn't returned yet, meaning he was still fighting something. But now he wondered what was happening. He couldn't move, nor could he even use buffs. All he saw was just a gaze of death above him. But while trapped there in the middle of that darkness, he can see 2 eyes. These eyes approach him closely, and he is startled by this thing. But here those eyes get closer and closer to him. A progress bar below there ends up increasing from 20 to 25, all because that thing soon appeared here. This was the god of death, but this god of death here was supposed to appear in the final dungeon, the most difficult dungeon. So he looks in the direction of that bone in front of him. It seems that perhaps this thing here in front of him is something that ends up summoning the BO prematurely in this world. It was something that he couldn't even reach in his previous life. But at that moment, it starts to say some things. The thing he just heard here was literally the voice he heard before dying in his previous life. And again, he sees this monster in front of him. But now, he is at a disadvantage. He doesn't have the strength he had in his previous life, and now it's very likely he will have the same fate as he had in his previous life. Besides, he can't even get rid of a small curse like this. But this god of death starts to say one thing. If this mage would like to live, then he offers him a chance. This is the chance to join him. By joining him, he can basically give him extremely high power, a power that will make him the mage of death, which will give him the chance to reach the top one as fast as possible. The stats shown in the system were 99 in strength, 99 in magic, 99 in 99 in strength, 99 in magic, 99 in magical attack, and so on. But as the god of death was speaking to him like this, he wonders what kind of stat this was. This was impossible. How could something like this exist? This thing here even challenges the heavens. But still, the god of death kept talking to him like this. Then he ends up receiving the system's offer. Join the temple of the god of death. Become the greatest mage in the world. So right? He has a choice. Join, or there's another one. If he doesn't join, he will end up dying here. At this moment, the items he has in hand will all fall to the ground. Other people will be able to pick them up and have the chance to become a death mage. The 2 options were ridiculous. One of them, if you refuse, you die. The other, by joining him, you will basically become something you don't want. Your humanity will be completely destroyed. But if he refuses here, he will be dying at the hands of this god of death, and that's something he doesn't want. If by chance he at least had the power of his previous life, he might be able to do something. So how would he solve this? This question is very difficult for a low-scoring student. So, right? The god of death realizes that Muzan didn't want to accept his offer. He will already be ending with Mem, but Muzan asks him to wait because he was thinking. This answer was difficult for him. So, right? He might be betraying humanity to help. The tyranny of this monster also ends up wondering what will happen if by chance that percentage below the boy's head there could reach 100%. Then, after thinking, he ends up saying that he has already made his choice. After he was reborn, he ended up discovering his true test, which is assignment. He chose that thing there, and that thing he chose was to refuse the powers of this god of death, leaving the god of death completely enraged with him. He thinks this guy is too arrogant and ignorant, and in front of this boys, our hero here seems more like an ant. But these creatures shouldn't be underestimated because ants also have ambitions, even though this small ant will be crushed by the small movement of this boys. He asks this boys to do this to him because this boys could kill this ant. But what he could not do was to remove his dignity, which he still had. He still wonders, but why the other? Because he didn't want to kill him soon, so the boys then agrees with his idea. He prepares to attack Armakan. Well, he will probably die, but maybe he will have that chance again to be reborn. That scythe was about to catch our mem. He could do nothing more. But at that moment, a noise happens, and it attracts the attention of an extremely powerful light that causes that scythe of the Demon King to be completely shattered near our mem. Then, looking towards the broken scythe, he is surprised by this. But there, that light starts to say some things. What a horrible thing. A superior being like him was attacking a mere ant. This cannot be. But worst of all was that this was in front of him. But that thing ends up calling this light in front of him like Michael. Well, he wonders why it appeared here. He also wonders if it came here to save this ant. After he heard that name, he remembers that this person could be one of the leaders of the archangels, the most powerful beings in the world. But now he was here to help defeat this thing and send this thing to hell. This archangel soon raises his arms, and then that punch he prepared goes towards the boys, who had one of the most overpowered statistics in the world that someone could see. But facing him, he was nothing. He was evaporated. However, that did not give up. He still ends up saying there that our hero will join his team sooner or later, and also asks this archangel not to think too much, for his just to start the party, because now everything here will be starting at its good moment. But you know, man, this we will really be discovering literally only in a next part.